Why had the control tower gone silent? Captain Sarah Mitchell adjusted her grip on the stick, her F-16 slicing through the cold Nevada sky at 25,000 feet. It should have been a routine training flight, nothing more than another check in the endless cycle of drills. Evaluations and hours logged. Yet the silence in her headset pressed heavier on her chest than the G-forces of the turn she was holding. She had flown with Master Sergeant Rodriguez in her ear for 3 years. His voice was steady, professional but warm. A presence so constant she had come to count on it like oxygen, but now only static, the kind that hisses in the bones. A sound that seems alive because it carries with it the weight of everything you can't see, everything that could be wrong. Sarah breathed slow, steady. She'd been here before alone in the cockpit. Decisions narrowed to fractions of a second, heartbeat tied to the machine she flew. But this wasn't combat. This wasn't supposed to feel like it did over Syria or the Gulf. This was Nevada. Her home skies, the radar blinked. 3 contacts. 2 o'clock high. Too fast for civilian aircraft. Too sharp to be anything but deliberate. She blinked, checked again. They hadn't been there seconds ago. Control. Viper 27, I have 3 unknowns, bearing 090, range 15 miles. Altitude 2000, please advise. Her voice was calm, clipped, professional. But inside she felt the pulse quicken, her hands a fraction tighter on the stick. Static, white, empty, crushing. She tried the backup frequency, then emergency. Each attempt returned nothing but the empty hiss. No Nellis, no Rodriguez. No voice tethering her to the ground. Any station, this is Air Force Viper 27 declaring communications emergency. Please respond. Nothing. The radar flashed again. But when she banked hard to get a visual, the sky was empty. Clear blue, stretching infinite. Her stomach dropped as she glanced back at the display. The contacts were gone, vanished as though they had never been. What the hell? She muttered, toggling radar modes, flipping through frequencies, desperate for a return. The screen stayed empty. And then the warning light, amber glow across her panel. Fuel low, 15 minutes left. 1 approach. 1 landing, no room for error. She needed to get down. She turned toward base. The sprawling shape of Nellis grew out of the desert horizon. Runways and hangars laid out in geometric perfection. She had always thought it looked like a toy set from the sky, her second home. Where she and Jake had built a life, she almost smiled, thinking of him waiting in the communications building, probably already counting down the minutes until her debrief so they could head home together. But then she saw it, the runway lights. Not white and red, not the steady pattern that guided her down countless times before. Erratic, strobing, chaotic flashes that almost looked like Morse code but too fast, too broken to read. Her stomach tightened. She dropped lower, scanning. The tower windows dark, no figures moving, no green-white beacon spinning, the tarmac empty. No fuel trucks, no marshalers, no crew. It was a ghost town. Her pulse raced. In all her years, she had never seen the base so still, training or exercise. Yes, but never this, never lifeless. And then the radio cracked, not with static, with a voice, Jake's voice. Sarah. Don't trust. They're inside. His words fractured, warped by distortion, cut in and out like a dying signal. Her heart seized. Jake? Jake, it's me. Where are you? Only silence answered. She keyed again, her hand trembling despite every ounce of training drilled into her bones. Jake, say again. Where are you? The silence hissed back. Her landing gear extended with a heavy thunk. She lined up with the broken lights, every instinct screaming this wasn't right. But she had no choice. 15 minutes of fuel had become 10, and in 10, she'd fall from the sky. Rubber screeched asphalt. Her jet touched down, shuddering. She rolled to a stop near Hangar 7. Engines down, canopy up, and then smell, acrid. Electrical fires, ozone, smoke carried on still air. Her boots hit the tarmac. Hollow echoes carried longer than they should have. No sound of crew, no hum of engines. Nothing alive. Her Beretta came free from her thigh holster. She had qualified with it hundreds of times, but never fired it outside a range. She prayed she wouldn't now, but prayers felt thin here. She moved low, covering ground toward the communications building. Jake's building, reinforced concrete, designed to survive nuclear strikes, normally bustling. Today, dark, silent, the guard shack empty, bulletproof windows cracked like spiderwebs. Card reader torn from its post, wires sparking blue against the steel. Her throat tightened. Gunfire cracked inside the building. Not training fire, not clean 3-round bursts. Chaotic, desperate, real. She sprinted, weapon up, through the shattered glass doors. The lobby floor glittered with brass casings, furniture overturned. Alarms shrieking in red light, the smell of cordite and blood. She swallowed hard, forcing her breathing even as her chest constricted. Each step into the stairwell felt heavier, like she was descending into a different world. Voices echoed below sharp commands. Accented English, words she couldn't parse, a tone she could. Hostile, her husband's office. Destroyed, papers scattered, mug shattered. The mug she had given him on their anniversary, now in pieces. But it was what sat on the desk that cut her deeper than any bullet ever could. Jake's ID, his ring, he never took it off. Her vision blurred as she reached for them, her hand shaking. The gold band felt warm in her palm, as if he had been there minutes ago. Blood drops marked the floor. Leading away, she followed, step by step. Every nerve screaming, but every beat of her heart refusing to stop. The trail ended at the server room. Lock fried. Inside, servers blinked, lights winking like eyes in the dark. And hanging from a cut security cable Jake's dog tags. Her knees weakened. But she forced herself forward, and there on the wall, scrawled in his handwriting words that chilled her blood, Blackbird Protocol. They know about the files. Her lips parted, breath caught. She had never heard those words before, but she knew. This wasn't random. This wasn't chaos. This was deliberate. Boots thudded above, voices closer. She snapped a photo, stuffed the tags and ring into her suit pocket. She had seconds, then the voice. She's here. The pilot's aircraft is still on the tarmac. Find her before she can report. Her heart pounded. She wasn't a witness. She was a target. Her eyes darted, desperate for an exit, and then vent shaft. Low to the ground, grate loose. She dropped to her knees, shoved it free, crawled inside. Metal scraped her shoulders. Her breath echoed too loud, the shaft groaning under her weight. Behind her, boots crashed into the stairwell. Men shouting, "Check every room." She was just here. She forced forward, blood rushing in her ears, the metal biting into her palms. Minutes felt like hours until the grate ahead broke light through the dark. She kicked, tumbled out onto gravel behind the building, gasping air that tasted like freedom but reeked of smoke. The sun hung low, streaking the desert sky with gold and purple, beautiful and wrong against the horror she crawled from. Her jet sat ahead, gleaming. Home, escape, safety, except no. She froze. A small device clung beneath the fuselage. Black box, red LED blinking. Tracker. Her blood ran cold. Someone had been watching her, for weeks, months, maybe? Waiting for this moment, she ripped it free, pocketed it, and climbed into the cockpit, shaking, not from fear, from something sharper. Anger, betrayal, the seed of vengeance. Screens flickered on. She bypassed startup, accessed databases instead. Personnel logs, Jake's records, and what she found cracked her in ways no bullet ever could. He had been working late, pulling files he shouldn't. Technology transfers. Shell companies, high-ranking officers, names she knew, trusted. Rodriguez, Hendricks, Colonel Webb, even him. Her stomach turned, her breath ragged. Jake hadn't been paranoid. He hadn't been reckless. He had been building a case. Alone, and now he was gone because of it. SUVs roared across the tarmac, black, unmarked, too many to count. No time. Engines screamed alive, afterburners flaring. She taxied, bullets sparking off asphalt. She shoved the throttle, hard hammering as the F-16 leapt into the sky, just ahead of the SUVs cutting across the runway. Viper 27, this is Colonel Webb. The radio crackled, smooth, calm, believable. You need to return to base immediately. There's been a terrorist attack. We need to debrief you. Sarah stared at the radio, tears burning hot behind her eyes. If she hadn't seen his name in Jake's files, she might have believed him. What's the status of my husband? She asked, voice breaking though she forced it steady. Pause. Then the lie. I'm sorry, Captain Mitchell. Staff Sergeant Mitchell was killed in the initial attack. Her vision blurred, but her hands stayed steady on the stick. Liar, her voice came out even, calm, professional. Roger, Colonel. Experiencing mechanical issues. Will return in 20 minutes. She flicked the radio off and banked toward the setting sun. She had 20 minutes. 20 minutes to find the truth. 20 minutes to save him or die trying. Why did she still hear his voice in her head? Sarah, don't trust them. They're inside. Jake's words, broken by static, clung to her even now as the F-16 roared low across the Nevada desert. She should have been focused on fuel calculations. Terrain masking, radar sweeps, every disciplined habit of a pilot surviving behind enemy lines. But these weren't enemy skies. This was home, and home had betrayed her. The sun dipped closer to the horizon. Bleeding crimson across the ridges, her instruments ticked down, fuel margins thinning to razor edges. She knew she didn't have enough to make it back to any friendly base if this turned out to be a wild chase, but something inside her, instinct, memory, faith, told her this wasn't madness. She keyed her onboard systems, punching into classified navigation data she technically wasn't cleared to use mid-flight. She had to. Every second mattered. She entered the designation Jake's scrawled message had left her with: Blackbird, Protocol, Files. The system spit back something she hadn't expected. Site 7. Her gut turned cold. A decommissioned Cold War bunker, 200 miles northeast of Nellis. Officially retired in '87. Unofficially, still powered. Still listed in obscure databases as strategic reserve. Perfect place to disappear people. Her jaw clenched. Jake, alive. Maybe, and if he wasn't, if those files had been his last act, then at least she'd know. She throttled down, dropping altitude to hug the desert terrain. Radar coverage would have trouble painting her this low, skimming ridges and washes. The jet shuddered in turbulence, but she rode it, eyes fixed on the horizon. For a moment, it was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that lets your mind wander when you least want it to. And her mind wandered back to him. Tonight's on base when he'd come home long after midnight, apologizing with a tired smile, brushing dust from his uniform, to mornings where she'd catch him staring at her. It looked somewhere between pride and worry in his eyes. As if he knew something she didn't. She had thought it was the job, the weight they both carried. Now she knew better. He'd been carrying secrets, not from her, but for her, protecting her, until it all caught up. The fuel light flicked. Amber again. She had minutes left. She eased the throttle, scanned ahead, and then, there, the desert flattened into a scar of geometry, almost invisible from altitude. A cluster of structures half buried in sand, ringed by fencing that looked weathered and old. But no decommissioned site kept lights glowing faintly underground. Site 7. She circled wide, careful, studying. Movement, vehicles, figures pacing. Guard towers that had no business manned on a dead facility. Her heart thudded. This was it. She could land. But the runway was too short, and fuel was nearly gone. She'd never make it out again if she put her bird down here. And maybe that didn't matter, because if Jake was inside, then leaving without him wasn't an option. The radio crackled again. Colonel Webb. Viper 27. You're off course. You need to return to Nellis immediately. Do you copy? She ignored it. Viper 27. Acknowledge. She flicked the comms off. Silence. She skimmed lower, passing just beyond the perimeter, close enough to count the guards. Then she banked hard, pulling away, eyes searching for a patch of desert, flat enough to risk putting down her jet without ripping it apart. There, a dry lake bed, a pale smear of cracked earth. She lined up, heart hammering, praying the gear would hold. The jet screamed, slowed, wheels hitting with bone-jarring impact. Dust plumed, vision blurred, but she held steady, braking hard. The bird groaned, skidded, but finally shuddered to a stop. The cockpit hissed open. Hot desert air seared her lungs. She climbed down fast, yanking survival gear from the compartment, slinging her rifle over her shoulder. She cast one last look at the jet. Her lifeline, now stranded, it felt like shedding a piece of herself. She set her jaw and started towards Site 7 on foot. Every step carried weight. The desert stretched silent, wind hissing over scrub and stone. The bunker loomed ahead, low and dark against the fading light. Guards patrolled with military precision. Too clean, too trained, not amateurs, not local contractors. This was organized. Private, foreign maybe, but connected. She crouched. Low, moving ridge to ridge, her heart raced, not just from the danger, but from the memory of Jake's handwriting, the desperate scrawl on concrete. Blackbird Protocol? They know about the files. The files. She thought of Rodriguez, the man who had guided her flights, steady as stone. His name on Jake's list. Webb. The commander she'd saluted for years. His voice lying smooth as silk. People she'd trusted. People who'd betrayed everything. Her throat tightened. She had spent her whole career building loyalty to a system, a chain of command. Now that chain was a noose, and she was running out of time. She reached the outer fence, crouched low. The perimeter lights flickered erratic, shadows jumping. She studied patrol patterns, eye sharp, mind calculating windows. Every second dragged, every sound magnified. A guard's footsteps crunched gravel just yards away. She pressed into the dirt, hardly daring to breathe. He passed. She cut the wire, slipped inside. Her boots met concrete, cold, unforgiving. The bunker swallowed sound. Corridors lit dim by emergency glow. It smelled of dust, oil, and something darker. She pressed forward. Rifle raised. Shadows loomed. Voices echoed. Accented English. Harsh commands. The same as before in Nellis. Her chest tightened. She followed. Silent. And then a sound, a groan, low human. She froze. Listened. A cell block. She crept closer, peering through barred windows. Figures. Prisoners. American uniforms. Faces bruised. Thin. Eyes hollow. Her breath hitched. Jake. She almost stepped forward. Almost called his name. But training cut in. Sharp. Merciless. Not yet. Not with guards everywhere. One sound. One mistake. And it was over. She swallowed hard, retreating into shadow. She couldn't rush. Not yet. But hope surged in her veins like fire. He was alive. Alive. Her mind raced. How to get them out? How to fight her way back with nothing but a rifle, dwindling ammo. And no escape plan? The truth settled heavy. She might not leave, and maybe that was fine, because she hadn't come here to survive. She'd come to find him. Her hand brushed the pocket where his ring and tags pressed against her chest. She closed her eyes. Just. For a moment, letting that weight steady her. Her radio crackled softly. Faint. Weak. Almost drowned in static. Not Webb this time. A different voice. Female. Low. Steady. If you're inside, you're not alone. Stay alive. Help is coming. Sarah's. Eyes snapped open. Breath caught. Who? The voice vanished, replaced by static, help, or trap. She didn't know which. But his boots pounded the corridor ahead, shouts rising. She knew one thing with absolute clarity. She couldn't turn back now. She was in the dark, surrounded, hunted, and Jake was here, alive. What if the voice had been a trap? Sarah pressed herself against the cold concrete wall, pulse hammering in her ears. The faint words still echoed. "You're not alone. Stay alive. Help is coming." A whisper in the static. It should have reassured her, but all she felt was dread, because in her world, voices without faces rarely meant salvation. Her thumb brushed Jake's ring through her flight suit pocket, the small band grounding her as chaos unfolded around her. Shouts echoed through the corridors ahead, boots pounding against steel grates, weapons clattering in ready hands. She moved low, steady, rifle tight against her shoulder, each step calculated, each breath a prayer she didn't let herself finish. She peeked around the corner. 2 guards in dark tactical gear swept past, rifles raised, methodical in their pattern. They moved like professionals, trained, not military issue, not standard U.S. forces. She recognized the difference instantly. Meridian, private, ruthless, she'd seen their type overseas, men who fought for contracts, not flags. Her stomach clenched. Jake was inside a cell. She'd seen him, pale and bruised, alive but fading. And he wasn't alone. Other prisoners. Other uniforms, all faces hollowed by captivity. Her hand tightened on the rifle. She could storm in right now, take the guards in a blaze of gunfire and adrenaline. Maybe she'd free him. Maybe she'd die before his second magazine ran dry. Not good enough. Her training screamed. Patience. Fight smart, not fast. She scanned the corridor again, eyes searching. For patterns, a keypad on the detention block door blinked faintly. Red light pulsing. Secured. Probably coded. Maybe biometric. She wouldn't break it from the outside. She swallowed, forcing herself to retreat into shadow, moving silently down a branching corridor. If she couldn't break the lock, she'd find who could. The deeper she moved into Site 7, the more the silence clawed at her. The place hummed with low electrical life. Servers hidden behind steel walls, ventilation carrying the metallic tang of recycled air. She thought of Nellis. The broken silence, the flickering lights, Jake's voice strangled in static. How deep did this rot go? Her boots caught on something. She looked down. A trail. Drops of blood. Drying dark against gray concrete. Too small to be random. A prisoner dragged? Or one of their own wounded? She followed. The trail led to a room door ajar. She pushed in. Rifle raised. Inside. Not cells. An office. Makeshift. Papers scattered across desks. Maps pinned to walls. Monitors glowing faintly with encrypted files. She stepped closer, scanning. One map froze her. Europe. Lines drawn between cities. Arrows. Numbers. Transfers. Her stomach knotted as she read the labels. Technology shipments. Airframes. Encryption. Modules. Radar prototypes. Jake had been right. This wasn't theft in isolation. It was an entire network. A ring too large, too embedded to fight clean. Her throat tightened. If they'd been selling secrets this long, how many soldiers had already died because of it? How many missions compromised? A noise. She swung. Rifle up. A man sat slumped against the wall. Guard uniform, black tactical vest. His hand pressed to his stomach. Blood soaking through his fingers. He looked up, eyes wide, lips pale. "Help!" He croaked, voice thick with an accent she couldn't place. Eastern European, maybe. His weapon lay discarded, useless. Her jaw clenched. Enemy, wounded, vulnerable. Her training whispered the easy answer. Leave him, he'd bleed out soon better. Yet. Put a bullet in his head and guarantee he wouldn't crawl back up. But she didn't move. Her father's words, long buried, came back to her. Words he told her before her first deployment. Dignity isn't about what you do when you win. It's about what you choose when you could be cruel. Her hand tightened on the trigger. Her chest ached. She hated him, not for who he was, but for what he represented. Jake's blood, her shattered trust, Rodriguez's betrayal. She lowered the rifle. "You've got one chance," she whispered, crouching close enough to keep the barrel trained. "On him. You tell me the codes to that detention block, or I let you bleed out." His eyes fluttered, his hand trembling. "They change them. Every 6 hours, only Commander knows." Her heart sank. Not what she wanted. "Who's the commander?" He swallowed, coughed blood. "Webb." Her stomach turned. Colonel Marcus Webb. The man who had just lied to her overcomes? The man who'd told her Jake was already dead. Her hand shook. She almost pulled the trigger. Almost ended this wounded man for saying his name. But she didn't. Instead, she stood, stepped back. Wrong answer. She whispered and left him. She moved on, deeper. Her body was trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of choice. She wanted blood, vengeance. But Jake's ring pressed against her chest, reminding her he hadn't fought for revenge. He had fought for truth, for exposure. The corridor widened. A stairwell descended, lit only by faint emergency glow. She moved carefully, rifle leading. Voices echoed below. She slowed, straining to catch them. "The exchange is tomorrow. 12 prisoners, payment confirmed." Moved Mitchell to the transport bay. Her blood froze Jake. She pressed lower, careful, until the voices sharpened. 2 guards stood at the base of the stairs, weapons slung, relaxed. They spoke in that same accented English, casual in their confidence. They didn't expect anyone inside. Her fingers slid over the trigger. 2 shots, clean, and the path would be hers. But her chest tightened. 2 men, unsuspecting. Would she kill them in cold blood? Or wait, risk Jake being moved before she acted? Her breath caught. She heard Jake's voice in her memory again, softer this time. "Save your strength. You'll need it." Her eyes burned. She waited, pressed herself into shadow as footsteps echoed. From deeper inside, a 3rd man emerged, clipboard in hand, barking orders. The guards straightened, listening, opportunity. She slid past the corner, silent as breath. Deeper into the complex while they were distracted. The air grew colder. The smell sharper. Disinfectant mixed with sweat and fear. She knew this scent to tension. She'd smelled it overseas in black sites they denied existed. Her stomach churned. She reached another corridor. Bars lined the walls, cells, faces. Stared out, hollow, bruised, silent. Some too weak to speak, others too afraid. And then, him Jake, he sat slumped, head low, his face thinner, bruises shadowing his jaw. But when he looked up, when his eyes caught hers through the bars, time stopped. Recognition, relief, love. "I knew." His voice cracked, barely a whisper. "I knew you'd come." Her throat closed. Tears stung her eyes, but she forced them back. She pressed her hand to the bars, close enough that he lifted his own, their fingers almost touching through steel. "I'll get you out," she whispered, voice breaking. His lips curved, faint, broken, but still a smile. "Save the others. Don't let me be the only one." Her chest ached so sharply it felt like breaking. Even now, battered, starved, chained, he thought of the others. She wanted to scream, to tear the doors apart with her bare hands, but the keypad blinked red. Locked, secured, her time was running out. She heard the guards returning. Boots heavy, voices rising, her eyes locked with Jake's. She swallowed hard, forcing her voice steady. "Hold on, I'll be back, I swear." He nodded once, faint, before. Lowering his head again, conserving strength, she slipped back into shadow, just as the guards rounded the corridor. Her mind raced. She couldn't break him out alone. Not yet, but she couldn't leave either. And then her radio crackled again. The same female voice, soft but urgent. "Window in 15 minutes, north entrance, be ready." Sarah's breath caught. The voice was real, not static, not a hallucination. Someone out there was fighting too. But who? And could she trust them? when trust had already cost her everything? Why had the voice chosen her? Sarah crouched in the darkened corridor, her pulse pounding so loud it drowned the hum of the servers behind the walls. The faint message still echoed through her comms. Window in 15 minutes, north entrance. Be ready. Every instinct told her to distrust it. Voices like that were traps, lures. She had spent years watching friends walk into ambush that began with hope whispered through static. Yet something about the tone, calm, steady, not desperate, cut through the fog. Whoever it was, they spoke like someone who understood. The stakes, she stole one more glance into the detention block. Jake hadn't lifted his head again. Maybe he'd fallen asleep. Maybe he was conserving the last sliver of strength left in him. Her chest tightened. She wanted to storm back, to break him free now. Damn the consequences. But his words still clung to her. Save the others. Don't let me be the only one. Her throat burned. He had always carried more than his share. Even in this, boots echoed again, closer this time. A squad. She couldn't stay here. Not with the patrol patterns tightening. Not with Jake still locked behind steel. She slipped into shadow and moved. Every turn was a gamble. Corridors stretched like veins in a body, pulsing with faint light, humming with unseen power. Site 7. Wasn't abandoned. It was alive. Too alive. A parasite dressed in military skin. The north entrance, she mapped it in her mind from the schematics Jake had hidden in his files. Secondary access, likely less guarded, designed as an evacuation. Point. If her mystery ally was real, if they had eyes inside, that was where they'd strike. She pressed through a maintenance stairwell, boots careful on steel. The air smelled of oil and dust, the kind that clung to old installations, but layered under it. Smoke. Cordite. She froze. A muffled boom shook. The walls, shouts erupted overhead. The distraction had begun. Her pace quickened. Rifle tight against her shoulder. She rounded the last corner before the entrance and stopped. Guards, 3 of them, rifles sweeping. They had been reinforced. Her chest constricted. She could retreat, risk being cut off, or engage. Her hand trembled. She thought of Jake. Behind steel, waiting. She thought of the others, and she thought of the ring pressed against her chest. No more hesitation. She slid from cover, dropped to a knee. 2 clean shots, suppressed cracks that whispered instead of roared. The first guard fell before he turned. The second pivoted, shouting, weapon rising. Her third shot punched him back into the wall. The third man fired. Round sparked. Off the wall inches from her head, she ducked, rolled, came up with her sights aligned. Squeezed. He collapsed, rifle clattering across concrete. Her ears rang even through the suppressor. Her hands shook. She hadn't killed like that in years. In training, yes. Overseas, yes. But always from a cockpit. Always with distance. Never this close. Never with eyes she could still see. She swallowed hard, forcing bile back down. Keep moving. Breathe later. The blast doors of the north entrance loomed ahead. Metal thick enough to hold against anything short of a missile strike. And then they groaned from the other side. She raised her rifle, bracing for another squad to pour through. The door slid open. A woman slipped inside. Dark fatigues, rifle slung, movements fluid and sure. She turned, eyes locking on Sarah. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Captain Mitchell? The woman said, voice low but firm. The same voice from the comms. Sarah's breath caught. Who are you? No time. We're burning minutes we don't have. You want him out? Sarah's chest constricted. She didn't have to ask who. Yes. Then follow. The woman moved like she knew the place, like she had studied every corridor, every blind spot. Sarah followed. Rifle up, nerves tight. She wanted to demand answers, wanted to know who this ghost of an ally was, and why she knew Sarah's name. But each turn brought them closer to the detention block. Each second lost was a second Jake might never get back. They stopped at a junction. Voices ahead, Meridian operatives. 4 of them, weapons up, blocking the hall. The woman pressed her. Back to the wall, glancing at Sarah. You take left, I'll take right. Quiet as you can. Once we're in, there's no going back. Sarah's throat tightened. She gave a quick nod. The woman slid low, moving with predator grace. Sarah mirrored. Hard hammering. 2 guards fell in near silence, suppressed fire cutting them down before they knew they were marked. The other 2 shouted. Gunfire erupting in the corridor. Bullets sparked, echoing like thunder in the narrow hall. Sarah hit the deck, firing back. 1 went down. The other ducked behind a console. Spraying wildfire, her ally didn't flinch. She moved fast, hard, pinning the man down with precise bursts before stepping close and silencing him clean. The hall fell quiet. Sarah exhaled, chest burning. She glanced at the woman. Who the hell are you? Later, she said, reloading fast. Right now, we move. They reached the detention block. The keypad blinked red. The woman pulled a device from her pack, slapped it against the lock. Sparks hissed, lights flickered. The red turned green. The door groaned open. Sarah rushed inside, heart in her throat. Jake's head lifted weakly, his eyes struggling to focus. Then, recognition, relief. Sarah. His voice cracked, raw but alive. She dropped to her knees at the bars, her hands trembling as they touched his through steel. I'm here. I'm getting you out. He tried to smile, but his lips trembled too much. Took you long enough, hers. Throat closed. She forced a shaky laugh, blinking hard against tears. You always were terrible at waiting. The woman worked the device again. Sparks hissing as the lock disengaged. The cell door clicked, swung open. Sarah caught Jake as he staggered, his weight heavy against her. He was thinner, weaker, but warm, alive. She pressed her forehead to his, just for a second, just enough to remember what it felt like. Then, shouting, boots pounding, reinforcements. The woman's voice cut sharp. We move now. Sarah hauled Jake's arm over her shoulder, half carrying, half dragging him. The prisoners stirred, voices calling. Weakly from the other cells, please. Desperation. Jake's hand gripped hers weakly. Don't. Leave them. Her chest ached. She turned to the woman. We can't take all of them. The woman said coldly, not in time. Sarah looked at the faces, hollow eyes staring back. Soldiers, Americans, forgotten. Her heart broke. She couldn't save them all. Not tonight, but to walk away, to condemn them. It felt like betrayal. Open as many as you can, she whispered fiercely. They deserve the chance. The woman hesitated, then nodded once, slapping charges on 2 more locks. Doors swung open. Prisoners stumbling out, weak but free. Gunfire erupted down the corridor. Meridian operatives stormed in, rifles blazing. Bullets tore sparks from walls. Prisoners diving for cover. Sarah shoved Jake behind a console, raised her rifle. Every shot now was fire and fury. No hesitation, no doubt. Guards fell, one after another, but more poured in. Her ally fought with ruthless precision, moving like a shadow, cutting angles. Clean, but they were outnumbered, outgunned. Jake coughed, voice raw. Sarah. Go. Leave me. You won't make it otherwise. Her chest tightened. She turned, eyes burning. Don't you dare, not again. Not like this. He tried to protest, but she cut him off. Voice fierce, shaking. We fight together, or not at all. 4. The first time, a flicker of pride lit his battered face. The woman shouted, They're flanking us. Move now or we're boxed in. Sarah tightened her grip on Jake, pulled him up. She fired her last rounds down the hall, covering the retreat. They stumbled into the stairwell, prisoners following, bullets tearing into the walls around them. The woman hurled a charge. The blast shook the corridor, fire and smoke filling the air, cutting off pursuit. For now, They burst through the north entrance into the desert night, the chill air shocking against sweat and blood. A Black Hawk helicopter thundered overhead, rotors whipping the sand into a storm. Sarah shielded Jake as it descended, her heart racing. The woman grabbed her arm. "This isn't over. They'll come. They always do." Sarah stared at her, panting, chest heaving. "Then who are you?" The woman met her eyes. For the first time, Sarah saw something softer there. "Maria Santis," she said. "And I don't like being lied to either." Before Sarah could answer, the Black Hawk's ramp slammed down. Armed figures beckoned them. Aboard, prisoners scrambled inside. Sarah dragged Jake up, holding him close as the bird lifted, gunfire rattling below. As Site 7 shrank into the night, Sarah pressed her face against Jake's shoulder, his heartbeat weak but steady under her hand. He was alive, for now, but somewhere inside her she knew this was only the beginning. Why did freedom feel heavier than captivity? The Black Hawk thundered through the night, desert winds slamming against its fuselage. Inside, the air was thick with smoke, sweat, and the raw stench of fear. The rescued prisoners sat slumped along the benches, eyes hollow, bodies trembling from malnutrition and shock. Some cradled wounds, others just stared ahead. Broken silence filling the cabin. Sarah kept her arms wrapped around Jake. His head rested weakly on his shoulder, his breath shallow but steady. Every rise and fall of his chest was a miracle. But she couldn't ignore how frail he felt, how much of him was missing. Weeks of interrogation and captivity had stripped the strength from his frame, but not from his eyes. When he looked at her, even through the bruises, there was fire. She brushed dirt and blood from his forehead, her voice trembling as she whispered, "You're safe now. I've got you." He coughed, voice ragged but steady enough to whisper back, "Safe? You think this ends here?" His eyes flicked toward the other prisoners. "They'll never stop. Not until we bury them or they bury us." Sarah's chest tightened. He wasn't wrong. Across from them, Maria Santis reloaded her rifle with methodical precision, her face calm, eyes hard. She hadn't spoken since they'd lifted off. Not until Sarah caught her gaze. "You knew my name," Sarah said quietly, over the roar of rotors. "How?" Maria studied her, then finally spoke. "Because I've been following your husband's trail longer than you realize. He wasn't the only one digging." Sarah's throat tightened. "You knew?" "I knew pieces," Maria said flatly. "My brother disappeared 18 months ago. Dia called it an accident. I didn't believe them. Then I found patterns, files, some of the same files Jake had copied. He was closer than anyone. Too close." Sarah looked down at Jake, tears stinging her eyes. He managed a faint smile. "I told you. I wasn't crazy." Her chest broke open. She pressed her forehead against his, whispering, "You were never crazy. You were right." Maria's voice cut through the moment, sharp but not unkind. "This wasn't just about your husband's Site 7 was one piece of something bigger. They're moving people, technology, money, across continents. What we hit tonight will barely make a dent. Webb and the others. They'll regroup." Sarah's fists clenched. "Then we hunt them." The words came out before she could think. Fierce and certain, Jake's hand squeezed hers weakly, pride flickering in his battered face. The Black Hawk dipped suddenly, banking. Hard, Sarah tensed, heart hammering. The crew chief shouted from the cockpit. "Fast movers inbound. We've got company." Gunfire ripped the night. Tracers streaked past the open ramp, red lines of death carving through the dark. Sarah grabbed Jake, shielding him as Maria shouted commands, returning fire from the doorway. 2 jets roared overhead, their silhouettes sharp against the stars. Sarah recognized the profile instantly. F-16s, her aircraft. Her heart dropped. The radio crackled inside the cockpit. Colonel Webb's voice, calm, authoritative. "Unidentified helicopter. You are violating restricted airspace. You will land immediately or be engaged. The crew chief swore, turning to Sarah. They've locked us. What do we do? Sarah's chest heaved. She knew exactly what would happen next. Webb would shoot them down and then blame it on a terrorist group. The prisoners would vanish, Maria and her team erased. Jake written off as already dead. Her hands trembled. This was her squadron, her aircraft, her brothers in arms, turned against her by lies. She shoved forward, past the crew chief, into the cockpit. Give me the radio. The pilot hesitated. Sarah's eyes burned into him. Now, he handed. The headset? Viper flight. This is Captain Sarah Mitchell. Viper 27. Break lock immediately. Static. A pause. Then one pilot's voice stunned. Captain Mitchell? You're supposed to be dead. She cut in sharply. Not yet. Stand down. Those prisoners are American military. Do you understand me? Americans, if you fire, you'll be executing your own. The channel went silent. Seconds stretched like hours. The F-16S circled, their engines screaming. Then, the second pilot's voice came, uncertain. Command says. Command is compromised. Sarah snapped. Her throat tightened. Listen to me. I've flown with you. I've bled with you. You know my voice. You know me. Don't let them make you murder your own. Her heart pounded. Every word felt like a lifeline. Another pause. Then the lock tone in the cockpit went silent. The jets banked away. Sarah sagged against the console. Breath shaking, she shoved the headset back to the pilot, her chest burning with both relief and grief. She had just declared war on her own chain of command. Maria's voice called from the cabin. We've got to put down somewhere safe. They'll track us otherwise. The pilot shouted back. Fuel's low. Closest option is Groom Lake area. 51. Secure, secretive, and crawling with eyes Sarah wasn't ready to trust. No, Sarah said firmly, stepping back into the cabin. Her mind raced, piecing Jake's files with Maria's leads. Not Groom Lake. They'll expect that. We need to disappear. Maria studied her. You have somewhere in mind? Sarah nodded slowly. Pentagon won't protect us. Bases are compromised. The DIA still has black rooms. Webb doesn't control. I can get us there, quietly. Maria raised a brow. You sure about that? Sarah's jaw clenched. No, but it's the only card we've got. Jake coughed weakly, pulling her hand to his chest. Sarah, they'll come for you now. You know that, right? She met his eyes, fierce. Then let them. They've taken. Enough. The Black Hawk dropped lower. Skimming the desert, Sarah held Jake close. Her heart a storm of fury, grief, and a clarity she hadn't felt since the first moment of silence on her radio. They had tried to erase her. Now she would make. Then remember, 6 days later, Sarah sat in a sterile Pentagon office. Her dress blues crisp, her face composed, across the table. General Hayes folded her hands, voice smooth with practiced sympathy. Captain Mitchell, after extensive investigation, the Department of Defense has concluded that Staff Sergeant Jacob Mitchell was killed in the Nellis incident. His remains were unrecoverable. Sarah's jaw tightened. She forced her face to remain stone. Inside, rage burned. Hayes continued. Your status is being changed to Widow Mark active. You'll retain rank. Flight status, survivor benefits. Widow, the word slammed into her chest like a round. She almost laughed. Jake was alive. Hidden. Healing, breathing, yet here they were. Writing his obituary with bureaucratic ink, she nodded once, her voice soft. Thank you, ma'am. It was a performance, the hardest of her life. But she had learned something in Site 7. Sometimes silence spoke louder than screams. That night, back in a hidden safe house in Arlington, Sarah peeled off the uniform, her hands trembling. Jake sat on the bed behind her, pale but stronger than before. Maria leaning against the wall, arms crossed. Sarah stared at her reflection in the mirror. Not the captain they thought they knew, Not the grieving widow they wanted her to play. Something else. Something harder. She whispered it to herself, barely audible. They think they buried me, but I'm still breathing. Maria's reflection met hers in the mirror. Then it's time to stop running, Sarah turned, her voice steady. No, it's time to start hunting. Why did betrayal always feel quieter than gunfire? Sarah sat in the safe house kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator the only sound breaking the silence. She hadn't slept in 3 days. Not really, she'd closed her eyes. But sleep never came, only flashes of Jake's bruised face. The hollow eyes of the prisoners left behind, the names in his files. Maria leaned against the counter, arms folded, studying her. She hadn't asked, but Sarah knew the question in her eyes. How far are you willing to go? The silence broke when Jake shuffled in. Leaning heavily on a crutch, his body was frail, but his eyes were sharper than ever. Locked on Sarah. They've already filed my death certificate, haven't they? He rasped. Sarah's throat tightened. Yes. He let out a humorless laugh. Good. Makes it easier to disappear. Maria's gaze shifted between them. Disappear all you want, but know this. Meridian isn't done. Webb isn't done. And neither are the people funding them. We got lucky pulling you out. Next time. We won't. Sarah leaned forward, her voice low but sharp. Then we don't wait for next time. We hit first. Jake studied her, his jaw set. You're talking about going rogue. Against the chain, against everything we swore to uphold. Her hands clenched on the table. The chain is broken, Jake. They're selling out the very people they swore to protect. Rodriguez, Webb, Hayes, maybe. How many more? You tried to fight it the right way, and they almost killed you for it. We can't play by their rules anymore. Jake's silence cut deeper than words. He stared at her, weighing the cost, before finally speaking. If we do this, we don't come back. Not to the Air Force. Not to normal life. We'll be ghosts. Sarah met his eyes, steady. Then we'll haunt them. For the first time since Site 7. Jake smiled, faint but real. Maria's voice broke the moment. I know people, former operators, men and women who've been burned by the system the same way we have. They'll join us, not because they owe me, but because they hate Meridian more than they love their pensions. Sarah frowned. Mercenaries? Maria shook her head. Not mercenaries, survivors, soldiers who still believe in the oath. Even after the institution broke it, Sarah's chest tightened. She wanted to believe. She had to. 3 weeks later, the team gathered in an abandoned warehouse outside D.C. 4 figures stepped into the shadows where Sarah, Jake, and Maria waited. Marcus Webb, not the colonel who betrayed them, but a Navy SEAL veteran with the same name. Barrel-chested, sharp-eyed, his presence carried quiet authority. He extended a hand to Sarah. I heard what happened at Nellis. I lost friends there too. I'm in Dr. Jennifer Kim, former Army intelligence, eyes cold but alive with fire. I blew the whistle in Afghanistan. They buried me for it. I'm done staying quiet. 2 others followed. Men Sarah didn't recognize, but whose stances, whose scars spoke of lives lived in combat zones across the globe. Maria looked at Sarah. This is it. Not official, not sanctioned, but they're all we've got. Sarah studied each face, the weight of command pressing onto her shoulders. She wasn't their CO, not really, but if this worked, she'd lead them into hell. She took a breath. This isn't revenge, not just revenge. This is about pulling the poison out of a system we once trusted. Meridian isn't just stealing tech. They're trafficking our own soldiers, Americans. If we don't stop them, no one will. The room was silent. Then Marcus spoke. What's the plan? Jake slid a folder across the table, his hands still shaking but his mind razor sharp. The exchange I overheard wasn't the last. They're running multiple sites. Meridian Solutions runs the logistics, but the buyers are foreign intelligence. Russia, China, Iran. The money flows through shell corporations, but we've traced it to 3 names. The next drop is in Prague. Arms dealers fronting as contractors. They'll move the prisoners before dawn. Sarah leaned forward, her voice hard. Then that's where we hit them. Maria's eyes narrowed. Europe's not the desert. We won't have the cover of a remote facility. It'll be crowded, dirty, and if we're caught, they'll call us traitors. Sarah finished flatly. But we'll know the truth. That night, Sarah lay awake on a cot, Jake breathing faintly beside her. She stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. She thought of the Pentagon office, Hayes' voice declaring Jake dead with bureaucratic calm. She thought of Rodriguez's voice, the comfort she once trusted, now poisoned by betrayal, and Webb, his voice lying so smoothly she almost believed him. Her hand tightened around Jake's ring, the metal digging into her palm. She whispered to herself, no more lies. The flight to Prague was covert, civilian papers forged, equipment smuggled in pieces. Every step felt heavier, each mile further from the safety of what once had been home. Sarah watched Jake, still recovering but refusing to stay behind. He carried his files like a weapon, every detail, every lead etched into his mind. When they landed, the cold European night bit through their jackets. The city spread before them, ancient streets and modern shadows. A place where secrets had been traded for centuries. Sarah's boots echoed softly on cobblestone as they moved into position. Her chest was tight, not from fear, but from the weight of choice. She had once fought wars under a flag. Now she fought in silence. Without recognition, without protection. She looked at Maria, at Marcus, at Jennifer, at Jake. All broken in their own ways, all standing anyway. For the first time, she realized maybe that was strength. Not the absence of scars, but the will to keep moving with them. They reached the overlook, below, in a warehouse lit by floodlights. Black SUVs pulled up, men in suits, tactical guards. And then, prisoners, Americans, blindfolded, shackled, pushed forward like cargo. Sarah's breath caught. Her hands trembled on the rifle. She whispered, her voice more prayer than command. Not again. Not tonight. Maria's hand brushed her shoulder, steady. Then we make sure of it. They set their sights. The night waited, thick with silence. Sarah closed her eyes just once, thinking of Jake's words, of the oath they'd both sworn, of the truth buried under lies. When she opened them, her finger was already on the trigger, and the hunt began. Why did the city feel like it was holding its breath? From the rooftop perch, Sarah scanned the Prague warehouse district. The glow of floodlights cut sharp angles across cracked concrete. Below, a convoy of black SUVs idled in tight formation, their engines humming low like predators waiting to strike. Guards moved with machine-like precision, rifles slung, eyes sharp, and in the center, the prisoners. Shackled, blindfolded, herded like cattle. Sarah's stomach churned. She tightened her grip on the rifle, forcing her breath slow. 12 of them, she whispered, just like Site 7. Beside her, Maria crouched low, night vision goggles glowing faint green. And twice as many guards. Marcus Webb, the SEAL, not the colonel, checked the charge on his suppressed carbine. We'll never get a clean sweep. Too many variables. Sarah's jaw tightened. Then we don't sweep. We cut the head off. Take the deal down before it happens. Jake lay on his stomach beside her, laptop balanced on a concrete ledge. Cables snaking into a surveillance feed they'd tapped. His voice was weak, but steady. Encrypted comms just lit up. Buyers are inside. Clock's ticking. Jennifer Kim adjusted the sling on her SMG, her face taut. Once they load those trucks, it's over. They'll vanish across borders before sunrise. Sarah's eyes burned with fury. Then we stop them here. Maria's gaze flicked toward her, and when the bodies hit the floor, when their governments scream, when Meridian paints us as terrorists? Sarah didn't blink. Then at least those 12 won't vanish into the dark. The team slipped into motion, each shadow merging with the night. Sarah led them down a fire escape, boots silent on steel. The air was sharp with diesel and cold, every sound amplified in her ears. Her pulse thudded like a war drum. At the warehouse edge, they split. Marcus and Jennifer flanked wide, Maria covering the rear. Sarah and Jake crept closer, keeping low. Sarah's chest ached with every glance at him, too weak for this, but refusing to be left behind. His determination burned hotter than his frailty. They reached a side door. Sarah pressed her ear against the steel. Voices inside, foreign accents, mingled with clipped English. The deal was in progress. She checked her watch, seconds slipping. Her hand hovered over the latch. She looked at Jake. His eyes met hers. Steady, unwavering, she whispered, "For them." He whispered back, "For all of them." She pushed the door. The scene inside seared itself into her memory. Long tables stacked with crates, weapons gleaming under harsh lights, men in suits shaking. Hands with armed contractors, prisoners kneeling in a line, blindfolds tight, hands bound, and above it all, Colonel Webb. His uniform crisp, his expression calm, his voice carrying authority as if he hadn't already betrayed everything. Sarah's breath hitched, rage surged. She leveled her rifle. But before she fired, chaos erupted. A blast shattered the far wall. Marcus's charges blowing an entry. Gunfire ripped the night apart. Shouts in multiple languages echoing. Guards scrambled. Prisoners cried out. Floodlights shattered in sparks. Sarah dropped low, firing controlled bursts. One guard collapsed, then another. Maria's shots cracked from the rear, cutting angles clean. Jennifer's SMG roared, sweeping the flank. Jake ducked behind a crate, feeding Sarah intel through the coms. 2 hostiles moving left. 4 more on the catwalk above. She pivoted, squeezing off shots. One body toppled from the catwalk, crashing onto crates below. Webb's voice cut through the storm. "Kill the prisoners if you can't secure them." Sarah's chest went cold. She screamed, voice raw. "No." She surged forward, bullets sparking inches from her. She tackled one guard before he could fire, slamming her rifle butt into his jaw. Another swung his weapon. Maria cut him down with a clean burst. The prisoners huddled tighter, terrified. Sarah threw herself between them and the firing line, shielding them with her body, firing blind toward the threat. Jake's voice crackled in her ear. "They're pulling data drives." "Sarah, Webb's taking the files." Her vision tunneled. She saw him, Webb, calm amid the storm, clutching a hard case as he slipped through a rear door. She roared, shoving a magazine into her rifle. Chasing, the corridor twisted, echoing with his retreating boots. Her lungs burned, fury carrying her faster than reason. She rounded a corner and froze. Webb stood at the far end, weapon leveled, case clutched tight. His eyes met hers, calm, mocking. "Captain Mitchell," he said evenly, voice carrying through the corridor. "You should have stayed dead." Her finger twitched on the trigger. "Drop it." His lips curved. "You're out of time. The exchange was never just here. Prague is a smokescreen. By dawn, the real shipment will be gone." Her chest constricted. "You're lying." "Am I?" His eyes gleamed. "You don't even know who you're fighting for anymore. Ghosts can't win wars." Her vision blurred with rage. She squeezed the trigger. He fired at the same time. The corridor exploded with muzzle flashes. Her round punched into his shoulder, spinning him. His bullet grazed her arm. Burning white-hot, she staggered, teeth gritted. Forcing herself upright, he dropped the case. For a second, his mask slipped, and she saw fear. Then he was gone, vanishing into smoke and shadow. She staggered forward, clutching her bleeding arm, grabbing the case. Her chest heaved, victory tasted. Like ash, behind her, gunfire still raged. She stumbled back into the warehouse. Clutching the case, Maria was dragging 2 freed prisoners toward cover. Marcus laying down suppressive fire. Jennifer bleeding from a wound in her side, but still fighting. And then, Her heart stopped. Jake was on the floor. She dropped the case, sprinted, sliding to his side. His chest was slick with blood, his breaths shallow, ragged. A round had caught him while she chased Webb. No. No. Stay with me. Her hands pressed down, desperate, trembling. His eyes fluttered, locking on hers. He tried to smile. Told you. You shouldn't have let me come. Her tears blurred everything. Don't you dare. Don't you leave. Me here. His hand, slick with blood, reached for hers. His voice was a whisper. Finish it. For all of us, her heart shattered. She pressed her forehead to his, sobbing through clenched teeth. I can't do this without you. His lips brushed her ear, the faintest ghost of a breath. Yes, you can. Then his hand slipped, Sarah's. Scream tore through the chaos, raw and broken. Bullets still flew. Guards still fought. But in that moment, the world collapsed into silence around her. Maria's hand gripped her shoulder, hard, dragging her back to reality. Sarah, we have to move, now. Sarah looked at Jake's still face, at the man who had been her anchor, her reason, her life. And she knew, if she stayed, she died here with him. If she left, she carried him into every step that followed. Her hand shook as she closed his eyes, whispering through tears, I'll finish it, I swear. Then she picked up her rifle. Her grief turned to steel. They fought their way out, dragging the prisoners. Smoke and fire consuming the warehouse behind them. The night air was sharp with cold, but Sarah felt nothing, only the burn of loss. The weight of the case in her other hand, and the hollow fury in her chest. Webb had escaped. Jake was gone. The files were in her grasp. But the cost was unbearable. As they vanished into the alleys of Prague, sirens wailing in the distance, Sarah whispered the words like a vow. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And this war was far from over. Why did silence feel heavier than the gunfire had? The safe house outside Prague smelled of antiseptic and grief. Sarah sat on the edge of a steel chair. Jake's dog tags clutched in her hand so tightly the edges dug into her palm. Her uniform was streaked with blood. His blood dried into dark stains she hadn't been able to wash away. He was gone. She'd fought wars overseas, seen comrades fall, carried bodies onto helicopters in deserts where the sand never forgave. But this was different. This was the man who had been her compass, the reason she came home at all. And she hadn't saved him. Maria sat across the table, her eyes red but unflinching. She didn't offer words of comfort. She knew better. Comfort was a lie. Instead, she slid the hard case across the table. This, Maria said, her voice low, is what he died for. Sarah stared at it, hands trembling as she opened the latches. Inside, drives and documents glowed under the dim light. Names, numbers, accounts, shipments. Every layer of Meridian's network laid bare. Webb hadn't lied about one thing. Prague was just a smokescreen. The real exchange had already been in motion. But now they had proof, Jennifer. Her arm in a sling from the firefight, leaned against the wall. If we release this the wrong way, it'll vanish, scrubbed, discredited. Webb still has friends. And the Pentagon, maybe higher. Marcus's voice rumbled from the corner. So we hit it loud. Public, media, oversight, allies, all at once. Drop it like a bomb no one can cover up. Sarah's chest ached. She turned Jake's tags over in her palm. He'd risked everything to gather this evidence, to shine light on the rot. He hadn't lived to see it exposed, but maybe that was her job now. Her voice cracked, she whispered. He wanted the truth out. Nothing less, Maria nodded slowly. Then we burn it all. The next 48 hours blurred into a storm of coded messages, hidden transfers, and encrypted leaks. Jennifer handled the data, cross-referencing accounts with satellite images. Intercepted comes, records too deeply buried for one person to cover. Marcus coordinated secure drops. routing the information to journalists, international watchdogs, and oversight committees in multiple governments. Maria stayed on the comms, building redundancies into every channel, ensuring that if one cut out, another still carried the truth. Sarah barely slept every time she closed her eyes. She saw Jake, his hand slipping from hers, his voice whispering, "Finish it." She worked with his ring digging into her skin, his dog tags hanging heavy around her neck. By dawn on the third day, it was done. The files had detonated across the digital world, flooding networks, newspapers, intelligence communities, names, faces, accounts, shipments. Undeniable, unstoppable. The fallout was immediate. Webb was arrested in Germany, dragged out of a diplomatic safe house as cameras captured his once pristine uniform smeared with the mud of humiliation. Rodriguez vanished before he could be questioned. His account frozen, his name burned. Generals resigned. Senators demanded inquiries. Foreign buyers scrambled to cover their tracks. But none of it brought Jake back. Sarah stood at his grave 6 weeks later. Not a real grave. Not with his body lost to the night in Prague, but a marker in Arlington. With his name carved deep, Staff Sergeant Jacob Mitchell, Kia, beloved husband, fighter of shadows. She laid his tags there, though the ring never left her neck. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold, and she whispered the words only he would have understood. "You were right about all of it. They won't bury the truth again, not while I'm breathing." A hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "Maria, we've got movement," she said quietly. 3 more disappearances. Germany, Okinawa, Guam, same signatures. Sarah's eyes closed. Grief and fury folding into one. She turned from the stone, her jaw tight, her chest steady. Jennifer waited near the car, files in hand. Marcus checked weapons from the trunk, the familiar rhythm of soldiers preparing for another fight. They weren't an army, they weren't sanctioned, but they were enough. Sarah slid into the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the horizon. As the car pulled away, she thought of Jake, not of his last breath, but of his smile and the days before. The way he had believed in her even when she didn't. He had always said the fight wasn't about victory. It was about refusing to give in. She finally understood. The war wasn't over. It never would be. But the truth had a heartbeat now, one she would carry as long as she lived, and maybe that was enough. The city blurred past. Maria's voice crackled. Over the comms, steady and cold. Target confirmed. Extraction window closes in 12 hours. Sarah checked her weapon. The weight familiar, the purpose heavier. She closed her eyes for one breath, one heartbeat, letting the grief settle into steel. When she opened them, the soldier was back. Ghost, widow, fighter, whatever they wanted to call her, she no longer cared. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts, and in the silence that followed, Sarah knew the war for Jake's memory had only just begun.